All right. Hi. Hello. I am Colby. I am Dameron, and I am here with you.
With me, I'm Jace. I am Jason, and I'm here with you.
And surprise, everyone, we have been doing a challenge. Some people caught on, but this has been the Boca Raton Belly Bolts and the Golden Goats have been in parallel universes for season 11 of the VBL-S. We have a lot to reveal about this challenge.
A lot of things that people definitely didn't catch on to immediately.
Yeah. So
we've been in collusion the whole time.
All right. So let's talk about exactly what this challenge was about. What the challenge is about. Can two coaches run the same pace every week? The whole goal was, hey, Jace, can we draft the same team, but also can we run the same team?
Yes, not just the same 11 Pokemon, but every single thing from the items, the EVs, to the movesets, everything. And essentially, instead of just prepping for one team, can you prep for twice the number of Pokemon with the same 6, while also having to work together with another person?
And this sounds super reasonable, right? Because VGC, the official Pokemon format, you bring one team and you play that same team of 6 Pokemon against the whole field. You just bring what's good and you play it. But that's not what's happening here. That's in a draft league. How different is a draft league from VGC? Can you just do that? Can you build a draft
Obviously, draft league and VGC are the exact same thing. I mean, how specialized does a team really need to be? Can't you just run good Pokemon with good moves and win games? Do you need to come up with strats? Good question.
And I think the exploration here was how unique is draft as a Pokemon format? Is it something where you just bring 6 great Mons? Can you draft a team of 6? Can you draft a team of 11? How much do you really need to care about your opponent when you're building your team? I had this idea. Oh yeah.
Just to spoil it, the answer is a lot.
The answer is a lot.
The answer is, having done many challenges myself across leagues, I've probably done 10 different challenges in the 50 plus seasons of Draft League I've done, probably more actually. This is probably the hardest one I've ever done.
I had this idea on September 23rd. I took this screenshot, and I'm like, hey, I had this idea the moment after I watched Jace's video of a balanced team where he brought the Mons the same number of times for this whole team for the whole season. It was wild, and I'm like, Jace has a great mind. I can do this crazy challenge with him, and he was in.
Yeah, the thing with 2 people, well, we'll get into it later. Foreshadowing.
So why can we do this challenge? Why are we privileged enough to do this crazy idea?
Lucky us.
Lucky us. VBL is the perfect environment for this because look at all these reasons.
These reasons. 1, it's a league with 2 conferences drafting on 2 different draft boards. So we can literally draft
the exact same team.
Gone.
Yeah, Jason's gone. He'll be back.
I'll be back.
Jason will be back. The idea was that we could draft the same team, and we even had a little while where we were theorizing what would happen if we drafted different Pokemon. Like we were looking at the Ninetales Chi-Yu move slot overlaps. We were looking at the Dragonite Salamence move slot overlap. That wasn't going to be good. Could we do the same different Pokemon with the same moves? No. The only way to make this really work was in a multiple conference format. Sync draft. We did the sync draft, but the reason to do this format that made the draft a little bit easier. Asterisk there. Sync draft made this more possible. We would have done this anyway, with or without sync draft.
We had the idea before the mod team decided to do sync draft.
Yes.
And my enjoyment of the sync draft format and encouragement of the mod team had nothing to do with this concept.
And the other thing is, we knew that this would be funny to watch. We knew that this would be a good thing that people could sink their teeth into and catch on to and be the joke. And enough of the players in the VBL-S are they do weird things anyway, so I don't know, maybe we're not doing a challenge.
And I think it's really entertaining for people to watch one of our videos and see us win with it and then say, wow, and the other person's going to win with it again. Incredible.
Yeah.
And also see a harebrained idea that is on one team and realize that the other person has to use it in a completely different matchup. So getting into the draft itself, it was a 110 budget draft, and we thought, okay, we need strong, consistent Pokemon, good that we can bring to a lot of matchups, right? So obviously going like for a super wide team doesn't make sense. And we decided to go with Roaring Moon, Slacking, and Wheezing. Now, the reason we went with this combo, both Roaring Moon and Wheezing, was a thing that was working on ladder as a good combo, and then it extends out to Wheezing. Boom, you have a cool 3-mon core that works together. But also, usually if you take Slacking first, you're guaranteed to get one of the 2 Wheezings later on. So you can pick that Pokemon last, pick all of the Pokemon you're planning on maybe around earlier than other people would have planned to take them. It's a drafting style that Tay uses a lot. And then we can guarantee we get the same Pokemon. That was the idea.
That was the idea. And I was convinced, and I think rightly so, that Wheezing was a valuable pick. I think people would have gone for it 3rd or 4th. That may have been a little bit hasty.
We immediately threw out that idea and just went with Wheezing first because we wanted it with Roaring Moon, who was our first pick.
We wanted
Which
Moon.
was a good choice.
Moon,
but then we were like, well, we still want Slacking though. But then Mismac took Grafai, and it was like, oh fuck, they're gonna take Slacking. We got to take it now, which defeated the whole point of it, of the drafting strategy. And so we picked those Pokemon without ever stopping to consider, are these the right Pokemon for this challenge?
We thought it was a fun, cool combo with good that would fit in the 110-point combo. Is it good for the challenge? A thing worth mentioning about the draft, though, is that when you're looking at the draft board, you can like watch the other format and be like, oh, what do they value? Oh, this conference is picking all the high tier mons, and we're picking all the low tier mons on this conference. That's kind of cool. When Jace and I are drafting, we have to look at both boards. So if Fluttermane gets picked on board 1 and Dragonite gets picked on board 2, then we can't pick either of them because then we couldn't match them.
And I think we did a pretty good job with putting together a good team, especially a team that looked good to people who didn't really catch on until a little later, with being constrained to Pokemon that were only available on both boards.
Yeah. It made the timing a little bit weird because we had to wait for the draft to kind of move in the same order. But again, VBL, great players, all consistent, all here playing the thing across time zones. It worked out.
Because of Sync, neither of us ever ended up holding up the draft at all.
Props to Sync. Love Sync draft. So the most important thing that we thought to have was a well-built team. You have to be able to... Jace made a really good comment in our prep. You have to have a team that does a thing well. You have to have a thing that your team is strong at. Some big attacking moves. You can't just run memes. You have to do a thing good. And we had with Wheezing and the Roaring Moon, we had the fastest Tailwind.
If you go in with a bad team, then that's like kind of tricky or something, or like going into one idea and that idea doesn't work in one matchup, then you're kind of screwed. But being well-rounded means that you'll have some kinds of tools in any matchup, and even with like a weird team composition that you end up bringing, you can still kind of steer your way out of problems. We thought it would be a good idea, like mentioned earlier, to draft in a vacuum by drafting Slacking and then getting Wheezing way at the end. We thought that, like mentioned again, drafting top heavy would work better than drafting a super wide team. And we thought that our first 6 picks, Roaring Moon, Wheezing, Slacking, Milo, Sizz, and Delphox, would be a good core. And on paper, they really cover each other's weaknesses well.
Yeah, I remember watching Jace's review video of our team. I'm like, wow, our team was great. Our team looks really good. We had a lot of evolved Pokemon. We had a lot of big stats, big numbers, types that covered each other well. What could go wrong? All these Pokemon
could go wrong?
Are fantastic, right? Right?
Right. So, for our season concept, we went with a little parallel universe storyline with heroes versus villains. My characters all being named after heroes and good guys.
And I had all of the villains. I had all the bad guys. Nobody caught on to this, I'm sure. high
I
content.
don't know. I don't think I saw anyone comment on the fact that your Milo was Ursula and my Milo was Ariel, which was like the most obvious one.
Yeah, that's a
But-
good point. We also had. I liked the. I liked the Palpatine and Mara Jade on my team. I liked the Star Wars references.
Me too.
Uh,
All right,
but-
this is where it got exciting.
Okay, so we've been taking snapshots of people messaging the both of us all season long. People messaging us being like, hey, Jason and Colby are doing the same thing. First Blood award goes to your boy, noticing that we both +6 both Weezings. You know, that's a funny thing that they both did.
Weird. And they +6 throwing moon. And then later on in mod chat, I think the following day, Steve was the first person to call it out, which is not surprising, as Steve is the man with the funky teams and the challenge seasons.
One of the things that Jason and I agreed on, and people found a little aggravating, and honestly was kind of hard to keep up, was that we were just going to play dumb. We were going to ignore the fact we're in parallel universes. We don't know each other exist. Don't mention anything to anyone. This had no ramifications and no backfires. Nothing went wrong with this later.
No, there was easy ways to avoid answering the question and talking about the specific thing. People really loved that we just were attempting to fully gaslight the server.
I think this was
being extremely obvious what we were doing.
I'm super happy we made that choice. I don't like having made that choice in hindsight because it took me away from talking about this with anyone but Jace.
True. I think people in the mod chat at first were somewhat frustrated about it, and then I think people did come around to it being a bit.
Yeah, I think we have some other chats here where people were catching on, and Steve goes, because I had to pick a Amon, and everyone kind of realized that Jace would pick the same thing. What if they snipe our picks and bump our stuff with the? But everyone respected the meme, respected it, and didn't. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Oh, we were nervous. We were scared.
Yes. And some people didn't figure it out until the end of the draft, even though we had the exact same Pokemon with the exact same bids, in the exact order, and the same backups.
And the cherry on top was afterwards, at the end of the draft, we didn't have the last Mon the same. So I had to run, and I gave Jace the pick. So Jace did the final trade for both of us to get Venonat. Very, very clearly in collusion. But everyone
making it so obvious.
Everyone was respectful of it. So we got through the draft. We did it. Let's build a team.
Now we have to actually do it.
Oh no. The biggest.
We made our draft review videos. Did not comment on it. Made literally the exact same presentation essentially by talking about the team twice.
We actually didn't collude on what we were talking about in our videos, and then we watched each other's videos and we're like, oh yeah, we said the same stuff. That's great.
And then we had to do the season, which meant we had to do everything the same and compromise on how to win different matchups, and then realize, if the opponents realize what we're doing, they can work with the other person, realize what we need to bring to beat one team, and know how to counter that for the other one.
Yeah, we have two brains working against two problems, and everyone had two brains working against the same problem. So
yeah,
yes.
But we also had two brains, and two brains are not better than one in a lot of cases, especially in cases like this league where if we were going to prep, we had to be communicating with each other. And if we're not on the same time zone, which we're not, we're 3 hours apart,
Nope.
If we have different schedules, if one of us is busy, no team building happens.
Yeah, no, those as far as scheduling goes, being California, Florida was the hardest thing, and just our work schedule, right? I work a general 9 to 5 more or less, and I can type during the workday, and Jace is a movie star, and
I have a very funky schedule. I'm busy oftentimes in the evenings, so it perfectly does not align.
Yeah.
Plus, we were hitting the holidays. We were traveling.
Yeah, I went on a trip, so we would do a thing and build a thing, and I gotta play my game before I go. What do I do? So I play my game before I leave, and then once you play the game, we realize that you're locked in, because if I build a team and I play it, that's what Jace now has to use, or vice versa. And
Even if it's a terrible team that we did not talk about, that we did not fully work on or test.
yeah, and
Plus, we can't plan ahead because of the Swiss format that we decided to use this season for the first time.
which I think had benefits. It was cool to match the people up with the Swiss and made the matches more interesting, but then it had matches. Swiss, other conversation, but very hard to plan for a very silly challenge.
Yes.
Going back.
Plus, we couldn't do live links. Well, we do videos, so we don't always do live links, but
Yeah. I don't.
if somebody saw one of our videos, then they would know what we were bringing to the other game.
Building a team is a very personal thing where your mod only has 4 moves, and when you have to play it, when you're trying to tune it to 2 different people, I like running protects more than Jace does. I like running my choice items. The speed tiers was really tough because there was the match where you had to fight against Regieleki or Iron Bundle, or no, there was the
Cinderace, I think, was actually the one.
The Cinderace.
I needed to be max speed to speed tie it.
Yeah, Cinderace
speed. It made no sense.
It speed ties Roaring Moon, and I'm like, it's gonna run a Scarf, and you're like, it's not gonna run a Scarf, and it did, and we ended up not doing it, and it was faster than you, and it destroyed you.
I won that game. All right, moving on.
Anyway,
moving on to the next slide. Week 1. Speaking of matchups,
Week 1. This was our first foray into the thing, and really illustrated to us how hard this challenge would be. I had this whole, is he going to set up or not? Am I going to get Wo-Chien? Turns out both of those things happened to me, and Boom was just living in a snowball.
Boom did 2 things versus me that really lost me week 1. First of all, he brought Ability Shield on Abomasnow, and I thought maybe people wouldn't bring Ability Shield week 1. Maybe they wouldn't catch on immediately that that's a good move. Boom did, and it messed up all my plans. And then in game 2, which I had in a pretty good position to win, I was up 3-1. I got slightly unlucky, missing a Stone Edge, and then getting a 10% Heat Wave hit into burn, and then I think also getting crit by Pheasantipity. But what we learned also was that our teams weren't going to stand up to getting unlucky. Weren't going to stand up to how versatile other teams were, because other people have great teams too. Our team is not some incredible one, and with our team being stretched so thin in terms of what it can do, not having room to run funky tech moves that are only for one matchup, and especially with slacking, this was the worst week for slacking coverage. We had to figure out which 4 moves to run, and we ended up just running no good moves. Slacking, even though it was part of the team, it didn't do much.
Slacking's best moves are like Giga Impact and Mega Kick, which aren't 100% accurate. Awful.
Slacking's best moves are knockoff and high horsepower.
Yeah, so we're looking at all like 8 moves that we want to run for the matchup. Like Wild Charge is like, okay, I guess I can use Wild Charge against the Volcarona if I have to.
Volcarona.
Yeah, like, and even in like talking about the team, I was making excuses like, yeah, this is meant for this move, but look, I don't have the Play Rough would be great in this matchup on the Slacking, but we had to drop it for the Body Slam. I guess we'll be fine.
I think I really wanted a Steel move into this game, and I convinced Colby to let me run Fire Punch, but yeah.
And this was actually super fun to have this first week argument of how do we fit all of the moves on the team? What speed tiers do we need to beat? Yeah, everything here was super weird, and
it was fun. We lost.
Yeah, and also this illustrated to me, I lost in game 3 against Heaven because I brought Slacking and Weezing died, and I didn't know how to use the team. Ugh. Gotta get good.
Yeah, so that's something else that we didn't talk about in the drafting section, but Colby and I have different styles. Like he said, he likes to run Protect more than I do, but just fundamentally, we have different experience with different Pokemon. Building a team being so personal, if you don't get to make your own personal choices, you're going to be in a lot of situations that you never expected to be in.
Yeah.
And then people started seeing.
Look at I think we were mad that Smog, that the Roaring Moon didn't have Protect here. We had to run the extra coverage. I'm like, I guess Stone Edge is good enough for the Volcarona, and then it ended up missing. It happened a lot. Jason and I, we both missed a lot of moves this season because we had to run suboptimal moves.
Yeah. And the team was stretched so thin that it wasn't able to come back from those unlucky situations. But let's move on to...
But after the first week, people start realizing, the astute among us noticed that, any heat that we were getting for drafting the same team and it looking like collusion immediately dropped, and it's like, oh, you guys are doing this? have fun with that, you crazy people. People,
Yeah.
and still we
From Steve
deny.
to say a truly impossible challenge. It honestly doesn't feel that crazy to prep just against one additional team.
VGC players do it all the
But
time.
but I think if one person was doing it themselves, it would have worked. But the fact that it was two different people who also had to prep for two different matchups and share the same team really made it tough because neither of us could actually execute a strategy that we thought would work for our playstyle. And obviously, stretching across even 11 is actually really, really, really hard. And this challenge makes it next level impossible.
Yeah. And people, the astute people are figuring it out, and some other people aren't yet. So week 2, I had to go. I had to play the.
Also, yeah. Wait, Bohm week 1 knew what fucking moves I had on my Pokemon.
Yeah, Boom figured it out.
Before we played, anyways, week 2. Week 2 was the roughest one because that's when the travel came in, and that's when we talked about our most. Okay. You know when you're building for a draft league game and you look at the matchup and you look at one of your low tiers and you're like, wait, this low tier is good here. Let's do it. And then you realize that it doesn't actually work later on in the week. Well, when you're relying on someone else to prep with, you don't have that time to realize that it doesn't work. And so we ended up going with a hard trick room mode into these two teams, which kind of makes sense, but the way it worked out, not so much.
It worked for me in game 1, and then I got reverse swept in games 2 and 3 against very good plays. Not a ton of hacks in this game, but very good plays by Jay. But yeah, I'm like, Lurantis, Terra Dragon, it's the move. It's gonna work, and it did, and it worked great for me, and it did not work great for Jace.
I mean, our opponents are also they're great. They're also playing the game, so the audacity that we have to think we can beat them, it's already an uphill battle. And once you lose a game in Swiss, you're facing other people who haven't won a game, and they have a fire under their ass. You don't get any free wins versus a player who's already clinched playoffs who can just chill. This team was not good enough for either matchup, and I think Colby, you almost clutched it out. I had absolutely no chance.
Yeah, you got demolished this week, and
only then did Sly realize.
I enjoy. Oh yeah, and then Sly comes in and goes, and this is when the secret is officially out. Sly posted in the main chat that we are bringing the same prep. Everyone now knows. Jason and I go, okay, we can't post our pastes anymore. We play super dumb. Sly says we're crazy.
Of course. All right. The next week. Okay, we're at 0-2. Now, if we lose a single game, this playoff out of contention. So we worked really hard on this team. I think we tested it a good bit.
We tested both matchups. This is the one where we had some success. I think I still won game 1 of this match, and then I lost games 2 and 3 to. Oh, I kept trying to call the Heatran Terra and Samax.
You made bad reads.
I made bad.
Yeah, that's the thing. The team was good and the builds were good, but it was just you gotta have a good draft, good team building, and really good play, and really good versions of them can balance each other out. But when it's a stressful season, when you're not as comfortable with the team because someone else built half of it, and because it's not perfect for the matchup, all of those things just get lowered just enough that a little mistake here snowballs into a mistake, and then everything falls apart.
Yeah,
I won my game easily.
I watched this game back, and I'm like ice beaming into the Heatran because I know it's Terra Grass and it's gonna do the thing, and then I don't Terra Poison the Samax got under me. He got under my skin, and just having that little bit of not comfortability with the team was the difference. Tough match.
Tough match.
Week 4 was interesting. So at this point, I'm 0-3. I can't make playoffs, and Jace goes, okay. We're gonna tweak the team a little bit closer to my matchup because I still have a chance. A little bit.
What do you want to do? Do you want to put more energy into my matchup? Do you want to keep splitting it? I wasn't out here like, haha, you're out of playoffs. It's all mine now.
No. We still kept the heart of the challenge, but I cared more about one of us making playoffs.
Sure.
And we tested this week also a lot. We tested this matchup. The Illumise ability shield. What were the key notes of this matchup? Because this one you won this matchup.
Yes,
Oh, the
I wanted to
Bronzor, the
play.
offensive Bronzor.
Yeah. Oh, I think the highlight of my season, personally.
Base 24 attack. Turns out it actually got some key KOs in your matchup, and still 4x super effective stomping tantrum into the Macargo doesn't kill, and then I get burned, and then I get flinched like 3 times. I got very haxed in this matchup, but it was still a fun match, and I had the 1v1 with Scizor versus Electrode, and I got paralyzed double full parried.
Yeah. It was tough, and this was a sad point because I was just barely clinging on to playoff potential, but Kodamarin being out so early in the season meant that the whole point of our season that we were trying both of us to compromise and figure it out was harder to make work. Um, we still went with it a good bit though, and we
And,
were just trying to hope that one of us could make playoffs.
and this was still a good match. Crazy things still
Yeah,
happened. I think that there were still some great plays. Um, the Enamorous was ability shield, but we were covering it with the Bronzor. Um, there were still moves. Oh, this is the one where we had Protect on Roaring Moon. It was Dragon Claw, Stomping Tantrum, Tailwind, Protect. And then I go, hold on a second, that doesn't hit Enamorous at all. So we had to drop Protect and put Iron Head. And that was like one of the constraints of the challenge. It was tough.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
We also started realizing at this point that like Wheezing, Slacking, and Roaring Moon are tough because a lot of the benefit from the Wheezing Roaring Moon thing is switching in and out the Wheezing, especially to like potentially do Intimidate stuff. We didn't have an Intimidator on the team, and it has to sit next to Slacking to work, which
mhm.
makes your team so much less versatile. And so we did have to come up with plans that involved using the skill swap that we had drafted, not immediately leading Slacking and Wheezing if Slacking was on the team, uh, and potentially also using creative Wheezing sets to get through the matchup.
And actually giving
But
Slacking offensive items to make up for the fact that it has no strong base power moves.
yes,
Um,
uh,
I love this message that I wrote. I was trying to ask people for help. At this point, I'm like, "Hey, everyone, help me with my team. How do you guys think I should play this team?" And the goal was justify the nonsense that I'm bringing to people as though I made these choices for me myself.
right. So this was the first week that we went outside of each other just a little bit to ask for some input, and
It was a funny experiment. And just some of these, you look at a team and you ever look at someone else's pace where you think that they're kind of crazy and what are they doing? This was that. I had fun with it. Um,
yeah,
week 5. Oh,
oh, brutal.
week 5 was brutal. Um, Jace was 2-2. I was 0-4 against Tay. I'm like, I
Oh,
can
so it was
handle
the
this.
4-0 versus the 0-4.
Yeah. I felt confident versus Tay because I can figure it out. But what ended up happening is we ended up EVing the Scizor and the Roaring Moon and a lot of the team to outspeed the 101 Sandy Shocks. And then, which outspeeds the 101 Thunderous. Amazing. But it doesn't outspeed the 108 Infernape,
108.
which would have been not that much harder to EV for. And turns out the 108 Infernape just destroys my whole team.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I lost 2-0 as well. Unfortunately, even with the energy of the team basically entirely being poured into mine, even then, you still have to actually be good, and sometimes you just get outplayed and outbuilt and you lose, which is the worst part because this game versus Electric, I kind of dunked on their team in power rankings. I didn't think it was that good, but hey,
Turns
they
out when
they outplayed me.
they have Fluttermane and Urshifu and other great mons, it works out.
It works out. Yeah. This was
Um,
an interesting one where we justified Bronzor again for 3 out of the 5 weeks we brought that mon.
and only brought
Way more than
Delphox
Delphos.
1 week because it looks so
Yeah.
good on paper, and then it just doesn't do all the things that it needs to. It doesn't beat the mons that it's faster than, and it doesn't live the trick room hits that it needs to live.
Yeah.
Ah,
I think we did learn from each other a little bit, or at least I learned from you, in the way you were playing Roaring Moon and Wheezing and Slacking in our mocks was really impressive and interesting to me. Um,
yeah.
in just the way you could like keep Slacking in the back and do a lot of switching, where I was more constrained to such linear game plans, and I tried to incorporate some of that into this game versus Electric, but it all came down to reads and predictions, and I wasn't going for the game-winning plays when I could have.
That was one of the cool things about running the same team, is that you get twice as much exposure to these mons, and see more ways to see it. And we're both invested in this team. When you're showing someone else your team and it's not theirs, you're like, okay, whatever, I'll play it. But when we're both invested in this, you get that much more learning about it.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of this, what did we learn? What did we learn?
What did we learn? So here are our hypotheses, and here are the results. We thought that the important thing would be to have a well-built team. Yes, but well-built team is a pretty broad concept, and we focused more on just making a team that was like Roaring Moon, Weezing, Slacking work, and less on what actual Pokemon work well on this. And the important thing is really drafting Pokemon like Urshifu Single Strike that Colby had last season, which just run the same 4 moves every time. And so you don't need to be fighting, oh, Roaring Moon really needs the coverage move, and Slacking needs the coverage move, and oh, we kind of want Tailwind, we want Protect. Pokemon that can just click their stabs and hit everything, like Iron Bundle, like Mamoswine, are so much more useful than something like Slacking, which only has normal stab. What were we doing?
What were we thinking? And then kind of drafting in this vacuum of like, okay, we're going to have this plan, we're going to do it in this order, we're going to make sure that we get these mons, we're going to put them together, and then wait a second, this can get derailed so quickly. Our goal was to be flexible, and we ended up not being flexible to start.
The whole point of drafting Slacking and Weezing together was so that we'd be able to get all the Pokemon we wanted. And we still got sniped a lot in the draft, a bunch. And we ended up with Slacking and Weezing and didn't actually consider if they were good on the team. And then, okay, I sent this message October 4th, so very early on in our discussion about this, still when the last season was going on. And I said, I wonder if a top-heavy team would work to just bring in these 6. Nah, that's the coward's path. We did not take the coward's path. We drafted Avalugg, who was cool. We drafted Morantis and Ampharos.
And Bronzor.
And Venonat were 2-point Pokemon. And so in that way, we were a little bit top-heavy, drafting multiple Pokemon at the very bottom of the barrel. But we still had a lot of, like, mid-range Pokemon. And I think if we had drafted just, like, 6 really broken guys and then a bunch of one-pointers, like Electric did, we would have had less questions about, like, oh,
we would have been fighting less over who to bring and what moves.
Yeah, which would have been beneficial.
Not a commentary on drafting, but commentary on drafting in a parallel universe
for this specific challenge. And we thought that our top 6 were good, and they were okay. They worked. We won a total of 2 of our 10 games, so maybe not amazing, but we were close in a lot of them, and if we hadn't been building together, we probably would have won more. The main issue, I thought, was we made the mistake of drafting Pokemon that were matchup specific, not just in terms of Roaring Moon and Slacking's coverage and Weezing's moveset, but also in terms of Melodic was there for Intimidate, and Delphox was there for Steel types, and if only one opponent has a Steel type or only one opponent has Intimidate, then those Pokemon aren't going to be justified.
Yeah, Melodic felt so awkward to bring. It's like, I guess I need a water type. I guess we're going to give it a Life Orb or some attacking thing because it's just going to hit neutrally. Like, you want this water type to be this defensive core, but what if it needs to defend against...
It's just too offensive.
Yeah.
And we had to do mixed bulk for every game. We couldn't just do fully Phys Def versus a physically defensive team because then the other team's going to have special attackers. So no Pokemon is as bulky as you want it to be.
The mons individually, Roaring Moon, turns out you need the different coverage. You want the Tailwind, and there's not a lot of room for Protect when you need all that extra coverage. And I think one of the matchups that I won, you sacrificed Roaring Moon for Tailwind, and I'm not good enough to feel comfortable with that yet, but that's probably correct a lot of the time. Click Tailwind, lose Moon.
Weezing is a good mon. It offers a lot, and mostly, what it does is spread stuff on Team Preview. Because you say, if I am not putting an ability shield on this Pokemon and it needs its ability and it's in front of Weezing, it's useless. Like an Illumise or a Medicham, right? Who lose huge abilities. Overall, that Pokemon was pretty good. It just wasn't quite enough next to Slacking to sweep through teams.
And I think we had a lot of discussion about which Weezing to pick. I think I would have been happy, maybe not happier, with with standard Weezing without the fairy type, but I will say the steel defense, we ran a lot of Berry, and it was relevant a lot of the time. It got hit by steel moves a lot. Maybe not having the fairy Weezing would have been better. We ran Berry at least twice.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that would
and
be 4
steel
times.
resist Terra every single time. I think.
Yeah.
Slacking, really probably the stinker of the team that had to come because it was such a core part of the team. But it says lacks base power because it doesn't have stab, and so it's really good stats in terms of offenses and then okay speed, but it just isn't actually sweeping through teams even next to Weezing, and especially when you have to sacrifice stuff on it, it just can't keep up.
And when you don't run it next to Weezing, you're always like, well, how am I going to deal with Truant? It's hard. Truant testing is also hard. It's I don't know. I don't understand Truant still. We messed up every time.
We tested stuff and got it wrong, even though we tested it.
Melodic, we talked about. Less good defensively when it's has to be so general, and when you can't target the competitive against a specific team.
When you need the move slots for Protect and for Icy Wind and for Scald and for Ice Beam, you can't fit Coil and Hypnosis. And Pokemon need 4 moves to be good. Some Pokemon don't, but if you're doing this challenge, don't draft Pokemon that need 4 moves. Like Scizor, who kind of only needs Bullet Punch in a lot of games.
We ended up looking at it and wanting to click on Close Combat Terra Fighting more often than I thought.
True. But Scizor was good. I felt like Scizor always carried its weight.
What a champ. Delphox, what a good Pokemon. I love starters. They have 530 base stats, and it was only 9 points, and it had Trick Room and Magician and all this cool stuff, but it was always didn't beat the Pokemon it was faster than, and would never live the hits against the Trick Room threats we needed it to set up Trick Room against. I don't understand this Pokemon. I can't get it to work.
We drafted this team too much like we were going to be doing a 9-week season or a 7-week season on our own. And Delphox, I think, is the prime example of that. Is that we had all sorts of cool ideas about, like, oh, it has Magician. We activate our Misty seed with Misty Surge Weezing, and then we can steal an opponent's item. And we can melt steel types, and we have all sorts of, like, cool tech on it, like Skill Swap and...
But then Ogerpon came in and hit us, and then we would lose.
Yeah, Delphox would have been able to use any one of those things maybe 1 week out of 7, but for this team, what we needed is something that was just going to, like, come and hit the field and do damage, or do like one thing well, so it could justify itself on both teams.
The back 5.
The other 5. I like these guys more than the top 6.
I mean, I do too. They were fun. Ampharos was your spicy pick. You love the Ampharos.
I don't think it ever came. I think it was
I brought it.
A good pick, though. You brought it? Fuck yeah.
It hit Terra Flying and then didn't die to a Hexorus and then ended up dying eventually.
Dude, wait, Ampharos was really good in that game. Ampharos, like, held down the team.
Yeah, it was the Terra Fairy it was a Dazzling Gleam. It was good with specs.
Yeah, for 4 points, it was great. Avalugg, I think, was huge on the team. We didn't end up using it that much, but every single team, it made the case for itself to be considered.
Yeah, it had a way to win the game built in because it's just a big, bulky, bonk you boy.
I don't know if we even ran Iron Defense Body Press.
No, we didn't. We ran Body Press, but Lurantis, superpower, it worked for me. Didn't work for Jace, but I'm hyped about Lurantis. I'm not a believer as much as I am just a hype man for Lurantis.
But with Stellar, Lurantis stocks are on the rise. But speaking of stocks on the rise, Bronzor baby, let's go.
Huge
if
Bronzor.
I take away one thing from this season,
Bronzor to 3 points.
Bronzor number 1.
Bronzor to 3 points.
Hell yeah.
It doesn't die to things. It doesn't die to things unless you double it. It doesn't have a good attack stat, but it has a bunch of support moves. Great.
Bronzor was the one Pokemon that, tech-wise, like, it actually had the right moves that would work in multiple matchups. And so it, like, functionally, to me, felt as good as Dusclops.
Yeah, or Bronzong.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Venonat, great 2-point mon. I think if I was running a 9-week season or a 7-week season and I was, needed the redirection or wanted to threaten the sleep powder, I would get around to like being comfortable with the team and then subbing out a mon for Venonat and bringing it. But the team was too complicated and I didn't understand it well enough to actually put him on the field. We brought him to 1 week, but
yeah. We never expected to bring Venonat, but genuinely we didn't really expect to bring any of these guys too much, and that should have been a clue that we shouldn't have spent so many points on them so that we could upgrade our shitters from the top 6.
They were all pretty cheap, I will say.
They were cheap.
They were what 6?
Game hard.
Yeah. But anyway, game hard. Game is hard.
Game hard. Oh, game's so hard.
And
I
players
was
are
also
good.
in 4 leagues while we were doing this season, which definitely did not help because a lot of my prep time was dedicated to one of the others.
Yeah, and
And when game hard, oh,
if
lose much.
if Jason and I were hanging out every week or doing a thing on a regular and could talk about this at work, if you had a friend that you were closer to on a regular basis, you could schedule better. You could talk about this more regularly. You could focus on it.
Closer to geographically.
Yeah, and this challenge could work if you practice more.
Guys, is Colby saying that we're not close? That we're not close friends?
Not geographically.
Am I getting dumped?
Not
Am I getting
geographically.
dumped? It's so over. Oh my
I
god.
mean, after I went 0-5, maybe you should dump me.
No. Oh, that was my fault for forcing you to run some optimal moves like Stone Edge on Roaring Moon.
Ugh.
Scheduling was really bad, and we were busy, and it's just like hard to do draft league at all when you're busy. We also had like an inbuilt mock partner, and we could have done more prep to make it work. We could have made trades. We were just busy and trying to do our best, man.
Still had fun with it.
Okay.
The overall takeaway.
I made this note.
Oh.
Making playoffs with a challenge draft requires obsession and risk taking, and a partner gets in the way of both. It's amazing having a partner, but Colby would come to me or I would come to him with like a crazy idea, a risk that we could take, a game plan that might work. And it would be like, that doesn't really work on my matchup, or I don't know if I believe in it as a concept. And you have to believe in some of those to win games. And having someone to temper you, I was definitely doing more temperance than Colby was. I was reining us in probably more than was necessary.
Well, one of us would come with a crazy idea like max attacks Bronzor, and then we would workshop a bunch of stuff, and only sometimes we would get to it. I think it was really in week 5 when we brought hard into Earthquake on a team with no ground types or flying types, and it didn't work. But that was when we were like finally trying the risky things. And that's the stuff that works in Draft League. When you find the risky, crazy things that work in this week, if you can catch your opponent off guard once, that's the beauty of Draft League. You get to change your team every week. You get to do crazy things.
We kind of just didn't get to do that. Plus, I think Jordan has talked about just like this game can be an obsession where you think about it all the time and all the different possibilities and solving the puzzle of your matchup. And when you're missing half of your brain most of the time, you can't ponder it on your walk. You can't hold 2 different matchups in your head. Holding one in your head is hard enough. And
I was often afraid. I didn't want to like, hey, can I lock in the team? Can we do the thing? Can we finalize it? Are you okay with me running this crazy strat? If it's not yours, it's harder to. You need to work and practice and actually get to that point where you get. So I think I had a lot of fun with this. I think we had a great season. I had a lot of fun losing and building and exploring.
It's also tough socially just to be like, well, if I make a whole team, maybe you're going to feel like, oh, you didn't let me build, and so you have to navigate that stuff. And we're friends. We didn't have any fights or anything like that, but it became like a thing where it's like, well, this move would be better for my matchup. This move would be better for yours.
Dazzling Gleam versus Strange Steam.
I'll trade you one coverage here for one coverage there.
Hey, I want to run Dazzling Gleam. I want to run Strange Steam. I want to run Protect. I want to run Helping Hand. I want to run Rain Dance. Little questions like this. We had these conversations. We had these arguments. We ended up with things, and things did and didn't work. All of that was part of this challenge, and I loved doing it. I had such a fun time. This challenge was super hard, super impossible, and less hidden than I thought it would be.
Here, it was less good than I thought it would be too. Overall, here at the bottom, I say overall takeaway: a good builder can win with a bad draft, but a good draft struggles when the builders are cooking too hard. Which I think is in conversation with the challenge drafts that have won historically. Is that you can give yourself a challenge, but you're always making the optimal choices for the matchup from what you have, and the limitation we had was just too severe. But I think that's wrong. I think the overall takeaway is not that. I think the overall takeaway is, even though we lost, I think I enjoyed this season of Draft League more than almost any of the other ones I've played, because I wasn't doing it alone. I was doing it with a friend, and I'm much closer with Colby now than I was before this season.
Yes.
I consider him a friend. And even though we lost, the losses hurt less because you had someone to share them with, and the victories felt better because we did them together.
And this resonates with me on a larger scale with the rest of VGC. Whenever I've got a tough matchup, I will talk to somebody, and they will help me with that week, and they will help me with that matchup, and then I'll get close to that person, and you'll share that with the victory, the loss, and that's what this draft league is all about. That's why we build the team every week, why we come back to the matchup every week, and why we stay tuned, why we make the content, why we have fun. These are friends that we're making. We're collaboratively building through challenges, and this was that on another level, and it was hard, and we got really close doing it.
And it was humbling. We both had lots of very good seasons in VBL. We both had leagues that we've won and soared through the sky. And it's nice sometimes to realize you're fallible and you bite off more than you can chew. And that just gives you a burning desire to win next season. Because we almost won a lot of games.
Yeah.
And I actually won a couple of them. But imagine if we work together and we're not getting in the way of each other for 2 different matchups. But next season, when we're just helping each other win every game.
Now hold on. There's
ready.
one more match we need to play. Stay tuned to these channels because there will be one more match where Jason and I play each other. Stay tuned, everyone.
Redemption. Stay tuned.